Yes, lateness is greatness. Good afternoon, people. Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well on this rather fine Tuesday afternoon. The weather is good. I'm feeling good. And I hope everyone else is also in the same camp. Playback sound. I thought I'd had that muted, but never mind. Whatever happens, happens. Que sera, sera. But what are we here to talk about today? So, we've had everything in the AMRABAT camp heating up, as well as the constant feed of just hotter than the sun, HOJLAND, hotter than the sun, HOJLAND, hotter than the sun, HOJLAND, hotter than the sun, HOJLAND. Do you guys reckon that someone thinks that the HOJLAND deal is hotter than the sun? Just by chance. Does anyone get that feeling? Anyone get that feeling at all? Who knows? Who knows? But we are supposedly closing in on both of those deals, which has got me feeling a little bit giddy because it's two deals. I mean, sure, HOJLAND, there's plenty of players that I'd rather have that would get me more excited, but there is one other player in those two that I'm definitely looking forward to big time, and that's AMRABAT. I'm definitely, I'll classify myself, I'll be self-acclaimed as an AMRABAT stan. Let's be the AMRABAT stan. But HOJLAND, it's just going to be a test of time. If he'll prove himself at United or not, we'll have to see. As for other topics that we're also going to be discussing as well, is basically just to sort of tail on to as the title of the video or stream, or that's actually down there because I'm viewing it on my StreamYards. So Atalanta have identified a supposed replacement. El Bilal Torre is the name that's been mentioned. So evidently Atalanta are prepared to let HOJLAND go. They're not going to be too stubborn with it by the looks of things. So a positive for United. We'll take that. We'll definitely take that. Elanga has had his announcement done, and obviously farewell to Anthony Elanga. Wish him all the best at Nottingham Forest. Hopefully he finds his finally, I'd say finally finds his breakthrough in first team football at top flight level. And I think he'll probably do so wearing the Nottingham Forest shirt. So, big ups to him. The Henderson, now, Dean Henderson, those conversations with Nottingham Forest are still going on. Player wants to move, the club United want to sell, and Nottingham Forest want the player. But the question marks is what's actually going on with the deal? What are Nottingham Forest trying to do? Where are they trying to go with this deal? Because I think at the end of the day, United know that Dean Henderson, we're not too fussed with actually, we're not too fussed with him going. We're not too fussed at all. So, put a decent offer on the table. We'll take it. Happy days. You get a goalkeeper, you get the player. And that's all she wrote with Dean Henderson. That's what it should be. But Nottingham Forest, trying to spin things up a little bit. There's rumours of potentially a loan to buy because one side of things, Nottingham Forest, I think what they're not trying to do is do what they did last summer and spend willy-nilly. They want to be a little bit more conservative, a little more sort of chilled out, a little bit more calm. And supposedly we'd seen rumours that they were going to explore another loan deal, but we'll probably see here that it's going to try and sort of angle this a little bit more towards a loan to buy potentially. And both positives and negatives about that, because personally, I just want Dean Henderson gone. I want him sold. I want him gone. But we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Martial is also back in training, which probably be for another week before he's on the injury table again, but who knows. Sancho being experimented. Will he be the false 9 player moving forward? That is the question. And Rashford has stated that he does prefer being a left winger. He is not the biggest fan of being the striker. He does prefer playing out on the left wing. We'll also indulge ourselves in that topic. So, where shall we start? We'll start with the title of the stream. AMRABAT and HOJLAND deals. We are closing in. We are getting ever closer to getting the breakthrough. So, Rasmus HOJLAND, as we know, is very much. It's as journalism claims, it's the proclaimed deal week, right? It's the week of the deal where the bids will start to go in, and essentially the aim for Manchester United is to get this deal wrapped up this week. So, I mean, take it from other clubs, you'd say this is deal week, it's going to happen this week. And you say, cool. So by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he'll be doing his medicals and completing the deal, right? With Manchester United's case, well, it's not as plain sailing as we all know. It's not as anywhere near plain sailing as everybody knows. So supposedly we could get this deal done and finished, completed, signatures on the contracts and everything, and all the photos and video announcements and all of that. We could have that this week. I'd like to have that this week. That would be fantastic. And I'd like to see them do what we'd seen under Louis van Gaal, when we had multiple players holding up the shirt next to the manager at the same time. When we got two players, I think it was with Morgan Schneider. I can't remember who the other player was though. Might have been Matteo Darmian, to be honest. So who knows? But Adam Taylor, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hello, hello. Would give an arm and a leg for AMRABAT. Give an arm and a leg, 100%. I think a lot of people are catching on to this now with the whole idea that he's the cheap steal of the market for what the player is, for who the player is, for what the player is, what the type of player that he is, and just how cheap he is compared to all the other alternatives on the market. I mean, I said that he's a cheap steal, and weeks later, other people are now starting to use the same term, cheap steal, and it is exactly what it is. It's cheap steal. If you want Romeo Lavia, 40, 50 million, because I know Man City have got a 40 million buyback clause on the player currently, but you're spending upwards of 40 to 50 million as a minimum, about that sort of ballpark. So there's a lot of money that you have to put forwards to attaining players in that sort of position at the moment. I think it's just the way the market is. AMRABAT, sorry. Thankfully, I can sort of half distinguish when people put in typos. I can sort of read over it. I know sometimes some people might read out comments on streams and just sort of be like, you're struggling with words. But thankfully, I've got a bit of a knack for sort of reading over it. But AMRABAT, Big T, good to see you, buddy. Hope you are well. AMRABAT rejected Liverpool, double his wage, 100%. And AMRABAT rejecting Liverpool, some people might look at this one way and say, "Oh, he's fantastic. He's opting to choose United." I'll tell you one thing as well that I think is surfaced on Twitter. It's surfaced on Twitter that maybe just maybe AMRABAT is wanting this United move because he's actually also played for Erik ten Hag before at FC Utrecht, back when he had hair. Like, man was not bald at that time. And I was like, what? That can't be him, right? I'm gonna right on the air, I'm going to fact check this. I'm gonna fact check this and see if he actually had played at FC Utrecht. So he has played in the Dutch league before. He has definitely played in the Dutch league before. No, he has. He's played for FC Utrecht back in the 17-18 season, or from 15-16 to 17-18, which was thereabouts the time that Erik ten Hag was managing that club. So he has actually played. He's a previous student of the Ten Hag game. Here's another one. Ten Hag Katel, AMRABAT. Maybe both. Maybe both, but no, AMRABAT. AMRABAT had some black hair, sort of a bit. It's sort of my length a bit, maybe slightly longer, but yeah, played for Erik ten Hag back then, and I think that was his breakthrough season as well for FC Utrecht because he was playing for the under-21s before then. So interesting trivia, bit of research there. So that's read into that what you will. Maybe some people would look at that and take that as ammunition to say, oh, but he's not got a talent ID. He's still sticking to these former players and he's still sticking to Dutch league prospects and all of that. Who cares? He's gone to Serie A and he's obviously found his feet at Fiorentina and is now generating the interest in him now, which I can't really have any complaints with because he's offering something that this team, Manchester United, in today's time, that what we need now, who we need in the squad, he's offering the perfect fit for what we need. So happy days. Doesn't matter what age he is, as long as he fits the bill, it gets a thumbs up from me. I'm happy with that. But yeah, supposedly the personal terms won't be a problem. I think the fact that obviously because of previous relations, perhaps that's going to be a sweetener to this deal. So it'll help get us across the line with doing Sofia and Amrabat. We've got rumored fees dropping again, somewhere to like £22 million as a minimum. I mean, if we're able to get that as well, I mean, fantastic savings on an already cheap deal. You know, yeah, you can't say otherwise. I mean, already £25 million is very cheap for a good mobile defensive midfielder with plenty of outlet capabilities. Obviously, he's not as much of a goal scorer or a threat in the box because he's actually one of the worst players in Serie A for that in those regards. But nonetheless, very, very, very good player. It's looking like Amrabat deal could be done before HOJLAND, perhaps. I think that can happen. That can happen, dependent on if we've got enough money generated from the sales before the deal actually gets finished with HOJLAND, because HOJLAND is essentially we're using funds that we already had, and yeah, we've laid the groundwork, or we've laid basically where we're going to go to, what the barriers. We've laid out the barriers. We've said this is where we're going. This is the furthest we're going to go with how much we're paying. So Manchester United are trying to be a bit more sort of hardball, and so, you got to give. You got to find. Trying to think of the words. I can't. It doesn't come to mind. But essentially, they've got to find a. Basically, they've got to give up their part of the deal, right? They've got to give up, lower their sort of audacious asking prices and just reduce the fees a little bit and just be like, fine, we'll give into it. The compromise, that's the word. It was a C word. Compromise. That's what perhaps we're trying to force Atalanta into doing, and I think we might sort of slip into those sort of territories, especially considering now that there's the interest on Atalanta's end in El Bilal Toure, as what's being mentioned name-wise, and I think the person who's probably been most on this deal or most included in this deal, and probably, in all fairness, the most accurate with the reporting for the Sofia and Amrabat stuff, and all our other links with Serie A targets. I mean, same thing with Andre Onana was reporting on it quite ferociously. Just trying to find the name because it has slipped my mind. Alfredo Padula. He has been a bit of a flash in the pan this summer transfer window with news from targets and potential players and signings from Serie A. So I think that's definitely it's a reliable name, a reliable source, a reliable outlet to get news from, with players from the Serie A, and happy days if what he's saying is that the deal for HOJLAND is not really in any jeopardy whatsoever. Things are going along as planned. Obviously, United's plan is to try and get this deal finished this week, and then perhaps get the Amrabat deal done at the same time. I mean, fantastic work if we can do that. Murto Madness might actually be having a bit of madness if you can sign 2 players in a week, but I won't count my chickens. I won't hold my breath. I will be saying, look, it's up to you. You do the jobs. You do what you're being paid to do. And please, I don't want to hear a word of complaint coming out of your mouth. Just do your job and do it as well as you can. Let us be the judge, the judge and the jury in this case, right? We will decide how well a job you've done as long as you are actually doing it, and no excuses, no excuses whatsoever, as long as you get that job done. And then we can assess your work afterwards, because word on the street is that based off of getting Andre Onana, Mount, Hoyland, and Amrabat, people are already saying that's a good window. For me, there's a lot of player sales that have still got to happen, because as good as your acquisitions are, if your sales don't match the same flow of intent, then you might find a few problems here or there. Um, but yeah, that's basically the sort of judgment that will come by the time we hit the final hour of the transfer window. And if players like Maguire are still here, McTominay, Fred, and Donny van de Beek, or whoever, right, whoever that we know needs to be sold and is still not sold, come the 31st of August, we can sit there and we can say, right, John Murto, what's happened? What are you doing? Why has this happened? Right. And that's where that I think is when we can say, on the sales side of things, that we can question what the board is actually doing. But yes, very good news in respects to whereabouts these Hoyland and Amrabat deals are. And perhaps this will be one of the best weeks in United's transfer window, for a United transfer window, one of the best weeks in a very, very, very long time. Sign 2 players that the squad needs in a striker and a defensive midfielder to partner Casemiro. You kill 2 birds in 1 week with one stone. Just a double swoop, one big go, happy days. I can't have any complaints about that. I think we'll be sitting quite in a comfortable position on the other end of this week if those deals get done. Let's go on to Elanga, Anthony Elanga. Obviously, the announcement video from Nottingham Forest has come out with Anthony Elanga, so he is officially a Nottingham Forest player now, and he's got the shirt on and all of that. And am I sad to see him go? Not really, because he wasn't really going to offer us anything. But for a guy that perhaps has still got plenty of potential to show exactly what sort of talent he has got in the locker, I think it's a good move for Nottingham Forest. It's the right sort of level for Elanga to find his feet in first team football at the elite level. I think it's just whether the question around what Nottingham Forest do will see Steve Cooper get the best out of Anthony Elanga. I think probably the best people or best person to ask, at least from this channel's perspective, perhaps the best person to ask is one of the subscribers, Long-Haired Yeti, who is a diehard Nottingham Forest fan. I think he's probably the best, probably most well-educated in all things Nottingham Forest, to give a viewpoint based off the squad that they have, and whereabouts he reckons that Anthony Elanga can fit in, and what sort of expectations he will hold for Elanga in this Nottingham Forest squad, and how far he reckons that Elanga could take Nottingham Forest, not us, Jimmy, Jesus Christ, but how far he can take Nottingham Forest in their endeavours to push up the table, overtake a few Premier League clubs next season. Adam Taylor here says Alvaro Fernandez over Malacia. Not convinced by Malacia last season. I think this is one of the topics that I covered in a previous stream, where I said that with Ten Hag's footballing situation, that last season we looked like in pre-season that we were going to be changing a lot of things, and it was going to be a completely different approach to football. Um, and then essentially the first two Premier League games happened, and that basically disappeared very, very quickly. That idea, the concept of this, tiki-taka style of game or style of play from Ten Hag wasn't going to happen. So we basically went back to basics, build a strong defence, strong foundation, build up from the back, and basically simplifying the jobs of the fullbacks and centre backs, and not trying to do crazy shapes here and there. Sometimes throughout the season, we've seen some of that shaping that Ten Hag wants us to have when we're in possession, or how he wants to play a game of football, and it has looked very good and very convincing at those sort of a few sort of key times here and there in the season. But I think this season is going to be a lot more of trying to do exactly what Ten Hag envisioned Manchester United being when he first joined. So I think where last season probably wasn't best, the best sort of style of football that we've seen, or that we see from Erik Ten Hag to judge players that are his system players, because Malacia, I mean, Ten Hag's been a long time admirer for him from the opposition's dugout. He's always highly rated him. So now he's here. He obviously had an idea and a plan with Malacia. I think to base it off of one season is very difficult to do, but just simply because of the season that we had last season, it was all just trying to find your feet, basically. So I think now this season you might see a little bit more, bollocks on show with experimentation, and actually having, seeing players like your fullbacks, like your Wan-Bissakas, Dalot, Shaws, Malacia's actually going up into these very advanced positions. And Malacia has got some serious qualities going forward and playing closer, more involved in the attacking scenario side of things, which I think if we're doing more of that going into next season, it will be the fantastic opportunity and test for someone like Malacia to prove, are you the future of our left back position? Are you the future here at Manchester United? Because Luke Shaw eventually is going to get on, and he'll go past his best usage, because I can't imagine Malacia is going to sit there and just be second fiddle to Luke Shaw the whole time. He will want to be the one to be benching Luke Shaw, and that's his aim this season. That's going to be his aim: bench Luke Shaw. And I mean, Alvaro Fernandez, he's not really played enough first team football to say, well, he's going to come and he's going to bench Malacia and Luke Shaw. But I think perhaps if you want to do another loan deal for Alvaro Fernandez, but put him up another level, rather than saying, oh, we'll go to League One or Championship, try and get him a loan deal for a top division club, and basically just see whether he sinks or swims at a higher level. And I'll tell you what, if he ends up getting into somehow, I mean, just for hypothetical sake, if you ended up getting into a club that plays in the Conference League or Europa League and get some minutes in that competition, I mean, geez, I mean, good on him if he can somehow get that done. But I think it's all just down to Alvaro's players' camp, and it's based on what the plans from the club are going to be with the player. So I think Malacia this season that we're going into is his big test, and that will be the decider, I think, moving forward, especially for this season. Are you watching the Wrexham game? To be quite frankly honest, probably not. I'm not too sure with the watch-alongs for the US tour games, just simply because of timings and everything. I think because basically just I'm living in a shared household where the walls here are paper thin, and if I'm talking too much late at night, that I'm gonna end up getting some noise complaints, 100%. And obviously, with the watch along stream, I've got to be doing some commentary, got to be talking about what's going on. I've got to be speculating, engaging with my audience. And I'll tell you one thing: if I've got paper thin walls and there are people sleeping, on that side there, but also that side there, there's two different people from two different rooms in paper thin walls are going to be disturbed. So, I mean, if it's like, say, Premier League or Champions League 8 o'clock kickoffs, that's absolutely fine, because by the time the game's finished, that's when people are just about coming to bed and all of that in this house. So, 8 o'clock kickoffs during the season is not going to be a problem whatsoever if we do watch alongs for those. It's literally just in the case of the US preseason tours, the timings of those games is going to be a bit of a, going to be a bit of a ball ache, I think, for everyone else in the household. Silent streams holding up word cards. I mean, yeah, cue cards. I could be doing some cue cards, perhaps. I could be doing some mime as well. Got to do the facial paint and everything, and I'll just got to be like, maybe something like that. I don't know. I've not done miming before. Maybe it's successful. Maybe I've become the first ever mime watch along streamer. Maybe that's the first. Maybe I start a trend. I start the new TikTok trend where everyone's busy acting like an NPC and saying ice cream tastes good about 5 to 6 times in a row. Honestly, the most baffling thing I've ever seen in my life. But I mean, Jesus Christ, there's always a first for something, as ludicrous as it may be. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens if it's in high demand. If enough people demand it, then I guess I'll just have to. But we'll have to see what happens there. So Henderson, Hendo man, he is negotiating with Nottingham Forest to get a move sealed to the club, and things perhaps not looking as fruitful as we were hoping for in this deal. I thought it should have been an easy to do deal. It's like, that the player's going, he wants to go to Nottingham Forest. You could see it from a mile away. The guy went on loan there for a season. He was just like, yeah, no, I love it here. Okay, go back there. Go back there. We could have said this before the 10th of June, and we could have had the deal basically ready to go at that point, because I mean every camp somewhat knew what they wanted to do, but because of David De Gea's situation, the club decided to complicate matters a whole heck of a lot more than they needed to. So yeah, unfortunately, Henderson is still here, is still on tour training, and trying to sell him off to Nottingham Forest, which at this point now they're not too interested in the buying aspect of the deal, and are now trying to push this towards another loan. And whether that's another sort of cost-cutting scheme from Nottingham Forest side, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't really know what the financial situations of Nottingham Forest are at the moment. So if anyone is actually more educated than me in that department, then do be sure to let me know. 100% let me know with that. But Nottingham Forest, they're trying to be a bit cheeky and push this towards a loan deal. We want to sell. I think most of the fans, they just want Dean Henderson to be sold. Take the money. We can use this money for all other things that are necessary, that we need to do in the market, because of this persistent sell to buy narrative that is being repeated. Rogers, Chisali Kamandani. I'm sorry if I've completely destroyed your name and brought shame, but good to see you. Welcome to the channel. I believe you're a first-time chatter as well. Never mind. Oh, that message got retracted, but is it possible to take AMRABAT, HOJLAND, and look at financial budget? If possible, please, we need to do it fast. It is possible. The HOJLAND deal, I've already covered this. The HOJLAND deal is essentially with money that we had just on face value, what we had. we've got enough money to do a HOJLAND deal for what we're trying to get Atalanta to accept, which is about 60 million. So we're trying to encourage Atalanta to accept that, because that's basically the maximum amount that we will be the maximum amount that we want to go for on that deal. And then any extra deals will be based around sell to buy and other aspects of raising funds, just so that we can afford to actually bid for more players. And Sofian Amrabat is one of the examples of being the sell to buy. The Elanga sale, I think, is for about £15 million thereabouts. So that's a good chunk of money coming from a player that's not really a starter in this team. So I mean, we're looking okay. We are looking okay. We are pushing in a direction that both the HOJLAND and AMRABAT deals should be very much doable. And because there's not really much of a high asking price on the AMRABAT deal, it's a very, very cheap deal to do. I think it's going to be a very easy deal to get done. So HOJLAND should be just, as it goes. It's just a routine deal. It should be a routine deal. And then a very quick deal. If you remember with the Malacia deal, when we signed him, he was going to play for Olympique Lyon. He's essentially about to get on a plane to go to France. And then we picked up the phone, and then the guy was on a plane to Manchester and then completed the deal practically within hours. So maybe we could do something similar to that. Maybe it's possible. I mean, the fees are cheap, so usually with cheap fees, you don't get all the complicated nature surrounding the deals. So personally, yes, I do think absolutely it's very, very much possible to get Amrabat and HOJLAND's deals done, and supposedly both should be doable in this week. So fingers crossed with that. Big T, stop messing around with loans and us still paying some wage. Just do a buy now, pay in 6 month scheme and get him gone. They can buy him on Klarna. Stick a mortgage on it. Soon we're going to be getting players. We're going to be paying for players like we pay for houses in this country, with putting mortgages down on it. We might be going that direction. You never know. But yeah, 100% with loans. I mean, we were doing loans last season because we needed stopgaps. We needed to plug some holes to stop, from things leaking, from the ship sinking as fast, right? And I think, with loan deals, really for us, as far as loan deals are concerned, with outgoings, I mean, I'll tell you what, the loan side of things with outgoing players is essentially a way of saying that, well, we can't sell them. We're struggling to sell them. So the loan deal is essentially your compromise, the selling club's compromise. So it's like, oh wow, it's a tough ask. It was a tough job. Oh, okay, I guess we'll give in to things on our end and just let the player go out on loan. It's like Eric Bailly last season, I think, was on the sell list. I mean, 10 players thereabouts were on the sell list or to sell list, and we sold none of them. I mean, the only player really we sold that had any semblance of being sold last season was Andres Pereira. We didn't sell anyone else. Everyone else just went on loan. Thankfully, this season, even though we're having to take next to no money for each of these player sales, we're getting players out the door. The squad is changing. The profiles of what we have and squad size is molding. It's changing. We're chopping down the amount of numbers that we have in the squads. Abu Bakar Dumboya, good to see you, with a little emoji in chat. But welcome to the channel. BT says, I'm surprised the player's not been signed with Bitcoin yet. I will tell you what, that might have been a possibility, except then the crypto markets crashed, and then Bitcoin went from being worth somewhere in like one Bitcoin was worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and suddenly collapsed. So it's like with the NFTs, for example. It's like some people, when you see it, and so somebody purchased an NFT for like what, millions, tens of millions of dollars. They now sit on market value for like a couple thousand. You're like, you paid millions for that, and now you could only sell it for a couple thousand. It's like you buy a mansion, but then the property market dies. The property market dies, and now that mansion's only worth like $100,000. Boy, you are not selling that mansion anytime soon, then, are you? You know, so yeah. Unfortunately, as much as that could have been a market alternative or currency alternative, I think clubs also tried to do the fan tokens as well to get on the hype of cryptocurrency and try to get involved with that. I think it was Spurs, AC Milan, Barcelona, clubs like that were doing fan tokens and all of that. But that idea went to pot very, very quick, really, really quick. Um, I wonder what caused Bitcoin to die. I don't know if it was to do with things that were just happening in the world, where like the interest in currency exchange basically just flipped on its head, or the interest in cryptocurrency, or but I can't remember what it was. That I don't know if it was something to do with a scandal with some crypto currency. Um, that went up in flames, that the interest in all other crypto investments went down or went to pot, or just a big crypto crash just happened. I don't know what sparked it, to be completely honest. Just something happened, and yeah, all cryptocurrency based currencies just went to pot, just disappeared, went up in flames. But yeah, as far as the Henderson thing goes, for me, just sell them. Don't bother with loans. I mean, even with a loan to buy, there's no guarantee that they're going to buy him, because that's like the pre-negotiated fee. It's like, well, if you take him on loan, like if you let us take him on loan for a year, we will bid for an X amount, like however much you want, we'll bid for him. Like if we want to buy him, that will be the negotiated, that will be the agreed fee. Um, I think. Then again, with loan to buys, I've never quite understood with loan to buys if it's more the case of it being an obligation, like you have to buy that player after a loan. To be honest, that wouldn't really make much sense to me. Um, but I think it's just more the case if you loan a player, your fee that you say, well, look, if you want to buy him, that's going to be the set asking price, and that's for you, right? And then you and you alone can get the player for that fee. I think that's probably the premise of what the loan to buy option is. So that's probably why Nottingham Forest are seeing that Henderson or most United players are very, very cheap at the moment, that they're trying to get a very low fee because perhaps United don't want to give up Dean Henderson for such a cheap amount of money. They say, well, do a loan to buy then. We'll loan him for this season, but, get that fee down a bit, and we'll talk. We'll talk. We'll definitely we'll consider putting the bid in. So for me, sell him by all means necessary. I know that there's a story that came out about Zion Suzuki. Word on the street there was that that he doesn't want to join United because of a lack of game time ahead of some international duty with Japan. Like he wants to have minutes with some international tournament around the corner. So, I mean, read on that what you will. Whether that is any truth to that or not, I don't know. Might just be some more gossip, but perhaps that's a genuine concern for a lot of players, especially the younger players, if they are desperate to play for their nations or countries. You might get that. You might get that. But anywho, Anthony Martial's back in training. Don't know what anyone thinks of that. Whether they're happy with that or whether they're just like, wow, smoke and mirrors. all smoke and mirrors. It's, he'll be training for a week play, kick a ball slightly too hard in the next game, and then just shatter his ankle or something, just on pure contact. Maybe that's what will happen with Anthony Martial. But yeah, listen, Anthony Martial. As much as everyone's just like, oh yes, Martial's back in training, but we probably said Martial's back in training like a month ago, and then we also said the same thing the month before that, and then we said the same thing before that. So these Martials are back in trainings for everyone getting excited with that. Here's the reality. Here's the reality for you. You're going to see the same post from Manchester United a month later. You're going to see the same post from Manchester United 2 months later. We're just going to see this constant notion of Martial's back in training. Martial's back in training. So as much as people want to be happy with that, it's all where it's just like, right, okay, well, he's back in training, but how long is he here for? How long is he here for? At this point, I mean, what's to say that he doesn't then start getting injured in training rather than playing, minutes on a football pitch? I mean, I don't know if for Martial, if it's the case that it's just repetitive injuries, right, that he's had before, or if it's just new injuries, because you might as well call him the French Daniel Sturridge. You might as well call him the French Daniel Sturridge, where the guy would literally get injured, but it's a new injury. It's a new injury every other week. Like like it's crazy. I think we should keep him fit for the Arsenal game. He can get injured after that one. What? Well, I mean, we could keep him fit for the Arsenal game. I mean, I'll tell you one thing is that I think it's necessary. I think it's absolutely necessary that with Rasmus Højlund, that if he's playing, because I know this question was asked the other day, whether, who starts in the first team, Martial or Rasmus Højlund, and I said that Rasmus Højlund should be the priority in getting game time over Martial, because Martial's fitness, you don't play an injury-prone player ahead of a fully fit player who hasn't got injury concerns and who is, supposedly a priority for a manager. It wouldn't make any sense if Martial was being played ahead of Rasmus Højlund for as many games as possible. Plus, if you limit the amount of minutes, but you just stagger it across a season, and that the time that Martial's not playing is that just because he's on the bench rather than being on the injury table, if you can get Martial to go a whole season, without getting injured or having a major injury, like if he picks up a little niggle here and there, cool. If he misses like 1 or 2 games throughout the season, fine. But major injuries that keep him out for weeks at a time, try and kick that out of the game. Try and kick that out of his game. And I think if you've got a striker that's starting every game with Martial coming off the bench, you're essentially saying, well, look, you're the equivalent of the bubble wrapped player here. And if you cannot stay fit with reduced minutes, but having a more sort of like an impact bench role, if you cannot survive on that, then my guy, you are the equivalent of being let go for free. Just cancel your contract, because you'd have nothing to offer. Absolutely nothing. Because some people, the question about Martial's injury and fitness, right? That conversation revolves around him being the first team player that starts for you. And people say, well, he's good enough to start for this team, but he's nowhere near fit enough. So if he goes a season as the bench option and is literally never fit, even then, his career, I mean, you say his United career is finished. No, his football career is finished. His football career is finished. Like I said, French Daniel Sturridge. That man went to the Australian League and got let go. After, I don't think it was even a full season. I think it was literally like half a season before he then got let go. But yeah, I grew up watching 2 strikers. I still can't get used to only playing with one even now. I mean, I was brought up on Ferguson having 4 strikers at the club. Like, I mean, his last season at United, he had Robin van Persie, Wayne Rooney, Chicharito Hernandez, and Danny Welbeck. He had four. He had four. I know he played a system where you got two strikers, or sometimes he'll play the number 9 and 10 right next to each other, or one right in front of the other. I know you used to do that a lot of the time, but four strikers. I mean, most clubs, even with a two striker system, only have one on the bench. And back then, you could only make 3 subs. So it was even less of potential. Yeah, there was even less of a potential to seeing all of these other players coming on, because now we've got the 5 sub rule. You're more likely to see a lot more players play a lot more minutes that you wouldn't have done, several years ago. So I mean, I love the change that we've gone to 5 subs as well, because I love to see there be way more players get game time. But yeah, I can definitely understand why people would feel a bit sort of jaded by having only 1 or 2 strikers at a club. I couldn't imagine having a club with just 1 or 2 strikers in it. Set it off sound. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. The good old days. Yeah, the good old days. Gotta love it. The good old days. Classic football formations. The classic football game. The game, the sort of football that you'd see where no one gave a flying F about what was going on, as long as they won a game of football. If someone died on the pitch, they died on the pitch. It was that sort of feeling about the game. When you went on a football pitch in a competitive game, you were going to war. You weren't playing some competitive football with a couple of your mates playing in the opposition's jerseys like we get now. If you don't wear the same jersey, you don't bleed the same blood, you're an enemy. For 90 minutes, you are an enemy, and you could see it. It was venomous. Sometimes outside the game as well, venomous. We've got a part of it's got to go back to that, I feel. 4-4-2 is long dead, or do you think it could be done still if done right? I think 4-4-2 is, perhaps you could call it the vanilla formation. It's a vanilla formation where, if sometimes, obviously big clubs, they play such a complex style of football where you get all of these different formations, or sometimes you'll get the essence that you're playing 3-4 different formations in one game of football, but that's just the plan A. And then the plan B's got like 3 different formations, and then plan C's got 2 different formations. It's just like football for big clubs is so complicated, but 4-4-2 is a very reliable vanilla formation when you just want to when a new manager comes in, Sean Dyche, just simplicity right the way across the board. If you want a simple game, you want to chill things out, steady the ship, 4-4-2, 2 banks of 4, strong defence, got 2 strikers, 1 to hold up play, 1 to get in behind, add a bit of a balance in there. And something you'll see it even now. Sometimes that sort of approach to a game can win you games in the Premier League. It can happen, but because of the way that the bigger clubs are going, with how much more complex the coaching is with bigger clubs, obviously a 4-4-2 is not going to be as efficient. It's not going to be as efficient against a very complex team. It's like if you put a 4-4-2 up against Pep Guardiola, or 19 teams play 4-4-2 against Pep Guardiola, I'll tell you what, Pep Guardiola might end up being the second, or Man City might end up being the second team to claim a golden Premier League trophy by going unbeaten. Although I say that, tell you what, even Brentford, when they do a very defensive formation, I think they did a 4-4-2 or something a little bit like that at the Etihad, and they won. That was last season. They won 2-1. That was just before the World Cup happened as well. So, I mean, maybe even for Pep Guardiola, the occasional 4-4-2 comes back to haunt him. I don't know. I think it does genuinely depend on perhaps if it's done right, but also the sort of profiles that the profile of player that you have in the squad can very much dictate how successful your simple formations are, but how far you can go with doing the more simple formations. I suppose the 4-3-3, that's sort of becoming a bit more of a vanilla formation as well, because there's a lot more 4-3-3s. That's most clubs play 4-3-3s now, so it's not really a unique style of formation. But I'm interested with, as far as formations go, to see what other new managers that come into the game, what sort of approach that they're gonna take. I think it's Xabi Alonso, or was it Xabi Alonso or Cesc Fabregas? I can't remember which manager it was. Came in and started playing a crazy formation, like it went trending for a little while on socials. His idea for like a next to non-existent defense or something. So it was an interesting read at the time, and I think a lot of people would have looked at it and just gone, "What the actual fuck?" But yeah, I think we'll have to see what happens or how the game progresses, which way football goes on the tactical elements. But yeah, as far as Martial back in training goes, I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled, but I'm interested to see if Eric is going to take us down the road with Martial being your bench option, and he's going to start prioritising a new boy, Rasmus Højlund, as the starting player for the first team. And if Martial can't stay fit, being a bench option, he has no hope. Not even at United, but I just think in football in general, guys just got no hope. Sancho, I'll move on to Sancho. Sancho at false 9. Now he's played 3 games there, or 3 times for United in pre-season as false number 9, and so far has looked okay. He's looked okay. I wouldn't say he's set the world alight, but I think just because where some people say, oh no, he's a winger, some other people will say, well, he's a 10, but then others will say, well, actually I kind of like him as the false number 9. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what Ten Hag has got, like what picture it is that Ten Hag sees with Jadon Sancho, because he's sort of falling into a trap where he's sort of played a lot of different formations, so no one really knows or has conviction over what sort of special, like what is he going to specialize in, like what role is he going to have in the team. Would you play Sancho with Højlund in a 3-5-2? I mean, to be fair, it could work, because what Sancho has done as the false 9 is essentially be more of he's what people are saying as a player that doesn't really go crazy with the ball at his feet. Like, he doesn't try and dribble past everyone every time. He just does the simple job when playing keep ball, but he'll also do that very well. So everyone will say, oh, but he's not very special. He's not a good player. Well, he's keeping the ball and he's doing the simple things and doing them well. So it stops them counter-attack. It stops the opposition countering you. It stops them doing that, because you've got someone who keeps the ball well, and you don't turn over possession every 2 minutes. And I think if you say got the 3-5-2, it's like what I said with the 4-4-2, where usually you have the player that's the target man, but also then the other player that's the pacey player in behind. What you get is an interesting balance between a Højlund and a Sancho. You've got an agile player in Jadon Sancho who's got a bit of trickery to him, but also can get him, get him behind. Not the most paciest player in the world, but he can be quick off the mark. You've got someone who's got good hold-up play, right? It's just really the question if he can show that physicality in the Premier League on a more consistent basis. Then on the other side of things, you've got Rasmus Højlund, who's very tall, very physical, but also very pacey. So a viable target man option, right? Can hold up the ball well. He links up play. He does link up play very well in terms of how he lays the ball off. He's like a Wout Weghorst, but probably about, say, 5 years younger, with a bit more pace, with a whole heck of a lot more pace. I mean, the guy he's got bags of energy and bags of pace. So the guy can offer both a target man presence, but also if the ball's on Sancho's side, that guy can get on his bike and he's gone. is absolutely gone. It's a bit like Romelu Lukaku, except he's got a better first touch. He's got a better first touch than Romelu Lukaku. As far as finishing goes compared to Romelu Lukaku, I don't really know. I think that's still yet to be seen because his goals record would illustrate perhaps he's not as clinical as some might think, especially considering he had one of the highest touches in the opposition's box last season. So it's going to be interesting, but I can see that complex with a Sancho Højlund front two, which poses some interesting poses an interesting concept to how that front two behaves and how it operates with the other system around it, with the five in midfield and then the three at the back. I suppose you could do that with you've got the Martinez and Varane, because those two guys like to do the diagonals, the aerial diagonal ball. But I think Martinez will probably have a lot more joy because he's got a taller target man who's got more pace than Sancho, can go retrieve those balls or receive that crossfield pass, whereas Varane is targeting a smaller player with less pace. So Varane's got to be much more of a dead eye with his distribution from the back if he's going to do that. But I think it's an interesting concept. Maybe we see it get imposed in the season, maybe, or implemented. I don't really know. It's there's a lot of questions that I think we're going to have answers to when we sort of get into things. So yeah, Sancho's the false number 9. That's what the experiment is at the moment. That's what's being touted. And I think based off of his training with what he's doing on the finishing side to his game, whether it's going to be a dedicated role to being the false number 9, if, say, Martial's not fit on the bench and with Højlund up top, but then Sancho can come on and play on in that central position, because Antony's essentially occupying the right-hand side, and Rashford, with his comments, which is basically we're going to we'll tie in this next point into this topic. But Rashford has supposedly said that he prefers being a left winger. He likes the left wing more so than starting in the striker position every week. So I think that sort of lays the foundations that a front three starting next season will look a bit like a Martial. No, not Jesus Christ, Martial. So Højlund striker, Rashford left wing, Antony right wing. That's probably what the front three is going to look like next season, just based off of how everything is shaping up. The big question mark is if Martial and Sancho are on the bench, if Martial gets subbed on for Højlund, obviously Sancho, if he comes on, he's playing as a winger. But then again, he's already played at number 10 last season. So if it's a 3 in midfield with then the striker up top, you know, if Sancho is that one in the middle, the number 10, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, Sancho's sort of half turning into a bit of a grey spot. He's turning into a bit of a grey spot where I don't really know for certain which way how we're using Jadon Sancho is going to go. So I think that one answers the question as to whether people would want to keep or sell Sancho, because I think Ten Hag has got some ideas that he wants to use for Sancho. So it's more the case of keeping Sancho to see what he wants to do with the player, as opposed to just selling him and then potentially having to go recruit someone else to do the master, the jack of all trades, master of none. But I think it's going to be probably one of the biggest experimental talking points, for United going into the new season. Where is Sancho going to play? What role is he going to have? How is he going to play? So there's questions about his form. There's going to be questions about what he offers the team. There's going to be questions about what role he's going to play. There's so many talking points for Jadon Sancho that we don't have the answers for. But I'm sure we're going to find out very, very soon once we get into the thick of it with the Premier League and all the other competitions as to what his role in the team is, where he plays on the pitch, and also just how good he's actually going to be for Manchester United, whether he's the option for us moving forwards, or whether we will need to look at recruiting a replacement come next summer. Or maybe even in January, because who knows, maybe Qatar take over between now and January, and they start, going absolutely ballistic in the January transfer window. I mean, who knows? They might end up doing that. Might go absolutely all guns blazing in the January transfer market, and that's the thing that I said, that if and it's a big if, the takeover happens between now and January, the I predicted that the January transfer window would be a record-breaking one. I know Chelsea broke. Yeah, I think Chelsea have claimed a record for the most amount of money spent in a January transfer window last January, but we might see a record-breaking January transfer window if that's the first window that Qatar has as the new owners of United. That's only really if that happens. Set It Off Sound says, keep him, then let them all fight for a place. That's how it should be. Exactly. And you can only perceive at elite level football clubs that competition for places is healthy. And I mean, that should be the case with all football clubs. I mean, for the right-hand side is probably a bit more of a question mark. I know with the left-hand side, it could be a bit of a question mark as well. I know Garnacho's getting some minutes down the left-hand side, but if Rashford's playing out there or starting out there, I don't think that Alejandro Garnacho is going to be, giving Marcus Rashford many issues, or Ten Hag any second thoughts about who starts out that's on the left hand side. Anthony is a bit more of a question mark, because obviously people, they've got their doubts in him in terms of his goal threat, what he offers the team. I think with Anthony, because there's a lot more for him to prove, it's either he's got to step up his level to sort of keep him in, or keep his position safe from future acquisitions. But more importantly, if Amad Diallo playing on the right-hand side, if he's playing and he's fully fit and he's offering something, because he's linked up pretty well for the minutes that he has played in pre-season, if you can carry that on into the new season, which, by the way, just for argument's sake, the Amad Diallo injury is only really a minor one, bit of a knock, left the I think it was MetLife Stadium on crutches, but apparently it's not that serious of an injury at all. So I don't think there's any problems with having him fit for the start of the new season. So that's a positive. But yeah, I think as far as the right-hand side, there's much more of a question mark over who plays or who starts down there, because Anthony's not really got that position on lockdown. It's like maybe Sancho is benching Anthony a few times this season. Maybe Diallo does it. I know Palestri is also negotiating a new contract. That poses more question marks over who's between between Palestri and Diallo, who's staying and who's going. Because I can't imagine for two players in the same position in their careers, at the same point in their careers, playing the same position. It's if it's going to be a bit more of a testing time for that right hand side, and sort of distinguishing who's going to be the go-to option for the right hand side. But I think as it stands, Anthony's probably the favourable choice on the right. So yeah, Anthony on the right, Rashford on the left, and then HOJLAND up top. And I think if you've got good competition for places, it keeps everyone on their toes, and it keeps the performances more motivated, more passionately driven, because people will know that, look, if you don't put in good performances, someone's going to take your place. And if you've got some motivation and incentives, most importantly incentives for players that are going to be coming in to play for United, that can only mean good things for us when we go to play our football games, home and away, big game, small game. There's always the incentive that's always there to be putting in 110%. because as we know, with United's case, we've had attitude problems with players. 100% we've had attitude problems with players in the past. But yes, essentially, so yeah, Marcus Rashford, just a quick I'll address this point real quick. So Marcus Rashford prefers playing on the left wing as opposed to striker. So I think that provides us with much more knowledge over what to expect with our starting 11s, especially when we talk about the left-hand side. Obviously, with some, the question I suppose it's going to be is if it's going to be linking up with Luke Shaw, or if Malacia has a blinder of the season, or if he bursts back onto the scene. That is Rashford Malacia link-ups down the left-hand side. I mean, no one really knows for certain, but all we know is that Marcus Rashford prefers to be starting on the left-hand side. Whether you guys think that's a good thing or not, I mean, I suppose it's better. I think it's better that we know this as fact, and that more importantly, Erik ten Hag knows it as fact that Marcus Rashford is starting, or he knows what position he'd prefer to be playing in. That sets the foundations to be much more solid, structurally solid. So there's no sort of, oh, well, Rashford could play up top in this game and he could play on the left-hand side in this game, but then on this game, he'll play on the right-hand side. I mean, it would be a bit of a nightmare if a player could look at that conversation and think, oh, well, that's what I'm going to have to do. I mean, am I changing my training modules each week? Am I doing something this week and then doing something else the next week? If he's constantly a dedicated left winger, the training becomes much more simplified because the topic, the task, the mission is the same. It's always the same. And I think that's going to be an important thing, is if we haven't got a player, I think that's the only case in point with Sancho's situation as well. If everyone's the grey spot of a footballer is if everyone's too busy pushing them into different positions, this and that. You're playing one position one week, you're playing the next position in another week, and then you're playing a different position the next week. Because of a role specific system like Ten Hag has, I mean, if it's just a 4-4-2, like a vanilla formation, the positions define themselves, right? And the football is much more simpler to understand. So you can say, okay, well, if I play as an attacking midfielder on the right-hand side of the midfield three, but then I also then play as a winger, it's much more simplified. I know what to expect. I know what will be asked of me. But a system-specific formation where each and every single role is so fine detailed with each different role, and the roles can be so different but complement each other so well. And that's going to be I think that's going to be the interesting point, that if Sancho gets too many positions, are we going to see the best of Jadon Sancho? If Rashford gets given too many positions to play, are we going to see the best of Marcus Rashford? I suppose if we can simplify where the players are playing, but know that if we need the cover, that player gets a whole string of games to cover a position that we know that they can fill out, then that's cool, that's fine. But if a player's playing different positions every game, like what Sancho could end up doing, that's going to be so difficult for someone like Jadon Sancho to know exactly what it is he needs to do or where he needs to, push himself as a player, because he's essentially got to find his feet. Sancho, this is what people might define him as his make or break season, right? For Jadon Sancho. Some people don't want to give him that chance, which is just entirely up to them. But this will be his make or break season. And if he's got such a complicated role to go out and fulfill, it's going to be really difficult, really, really, really difficult to sort of nail down what the plan is from game to game. And, that's my only real worry with how Jadon Sancho might end up being utilised next season. But I think with Rashford, if he's come out to say, well, look, my favourite position is the left-hand side, playing as left wing, I know people like to use me as a striker, but if I can play left wing and just keep that position tied down, then happy days. Like Marcus Rashford, you'll probably see a much more focused player who knows exactly what he's doing at every given time. And plus, if you've got HOJLAND in there, there's much less incentive to say, well, Rashford starts up top. Well, you've got HOJLAND that's available. You've got Hoyland that's available, so Hoyland starts up top, right? And you've got Martial that can be subbed on to play up top instead of him. I mean, there we go. That solves any Rashford dilemma. So I think most people think that Rashford is a better winger. I think some people think that Rashford's a better as a striker. I think his goals tally is very specifically much more. I think was favoured more to him being a left winger. I think most especially when he comes and cuts in from the left-hand side. I think it was the Arsenal game at the Emirates with a real sweet strike from distance when he came in onto his right foot, and a very sweet right foot. But I'd like to see Rashford get just a consistent season, just non-stop play left wing from the first game of the season right to the last game of the season, and I'll be very interested to see how many goals he gets, but not just in the case of scoring goals, but how many goals he actually sets up as well. So that's a mission I think we can say for all the players in the squad. And fingers crossed that the progression of Ten Hag's system going into the new season, that we can actually see those players thriving and progressing and going up in the world of football. So fingers crossed we see the very best of Ten Hag football next season, all for everyone's sake, the fan base's sake, but also the players' sake as well. So that is pretty much all of my topics of discussion completed. So essentially, I'm going to wrap things up there. I'm going to finish this show here, and basically going to get ready for the night because I've got a busy night with the family coming up. So I've got plenty to look forward to, plenty of things to get on to. Shazam, good to see you again there. Great stream. Great stream. Keep it up. I very much will. Thank you for the support. It's almost like I always know that you're there. You're almost lurking in the streams and just bearing witness to greatness. But yeah, really appreciate it. Even if you are literally just watching the stream, it was massive appreciation for everyone that does contribute in whatever form it is. So yeah, big ups to everyone that tuned in. Massive shout out to everyone that's hit the likes. We've hit 7 likes, so it's one of the most liked streams in a long time. So thank you very much for everyone that has smashed a like on the stream. For anyone that has subscribed, I don't have a live subscriber account, so I can't actually see if I've gained any subs over the stream. Perhaps I'll have to have a look into that to see if there is a way that I can actually see that more live. But also big ups just to people who watch it, because whatever way that it is that you support this stream, whether it be in the form of liking it or subscribing to the channel or just watching, but even commenting, just adding interaction brings a lot more excitement, a lot more intensity to the stream, because it's like I've said this before, where having a stream for about an hour with all these different topics to discuss, but then you go for an hour, you go through those topics super fast, and then there's really nothing else to discuss. And if I've got some conversations going on with viewers in the chat, it really helps to fill that time, and it sort of picks my brains a bit, right? And I always like to get my brains picked a little bit to think more, and gives me more to speak about, because I love to talk about football. To some, I'll be the prophet. Some others, I will be the ramblings of a madman. Whatever it is, maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it, but every element about this of what I'm doing, I massively enjoy. Don't earn any money off of it as well. This is literally just on the case of doing it out of enjoyment, and it's a good way to spend my time. So yeah, massively enjoy it, and you guys definitely make it that much more sweeter. So thank you very much for all of your support. So gonna love you and leave you there, guys. But yes, once again, big ups to everyone. I'm just gonna literally leave this as a parting words of thanks there. But yeah, thank you very much for the show, and we'll be seeing you again real soon. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoons, and we'll be seeing you again real soon, probably tomorrow. So that's it from me for now, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.